Hey y'all, I guess I was not intending on making a video today about this. I was gonna wait until I was gonna originally wait until Tuesday for the show to actually record something about this, but I figured why not wait and do it now because a lot of things have sort of transpired. And what I'm referring to is the Nico Iamaleava situation at Tennessee. It's gotten worse since the last time or at least when this was broke this time yesterday. Of course, it happens during our show yesterday. By the way, if you haven't watched yet, the show from yesterday, I recommend doing so. It's available on YouTube and Spotify now. But I figured instead of just waiting until Tuesday to talk about this, because this is like at this point this will be 4 days old. I figured why not just do an emergency sort of clip about this. As you can tell, I don't have a script on this. I'm not really to prepare this. Is this going to be me, I guess, rambling on about my thoughts on this and sort of explain what's been happening with Nico and this whole contract negotiation thing and whatnot. So I'm going to get some water real quick here and then we'll dive into this. By the way, this is only going to be a YouTube exclusive situation, so this will not be on Spotify. So if you're looking for this on Spotify, you're not going to find it. So it just is what it is. But anyway, this is sort of a timeline of what has happened so far. This is coming from College Football Report on Twitter. Sort of gives you a bit of a breakdown of what has happened with Nico Iamaleava during his time at Tennessee. So in 2022, they signed an agreement. Of course, this is all stemming with a contract situation. Of course, he's not been at practice today, or he was not at practice this morning. But this is just what College Football Report has, just a sort of very basic timeline of more of the contract situation. Of course, we'll get into other things that have also transpired as well. So again, according to them, this is sort of the timeline they've compiled. That in 2022, Nico signed an agreement with Tennessee's NIL collective that could pay him more than $8 million by the end of his junior year. The other bullet point here, the second one, is Nico's current contract has him signed, or has him being paid from 2.2 to 2.5 million. Nico's team wanted this deal to be increased to 4 million, so right around 1 million more than what Carson Beck and Bryce Underwood, he was the freshman at Michigan, are getting. Of course, Carson Beck is at Miami now. Of course, he's not practicing right now in spring practice. He got hurt last year, or towards the end of last season, and he will hopefully be healthy by fall camp. But so he wanted a pay increase. And then with the spring portal coming up, the spring window, which we talked about yesterday on the show, originally I didn't think there was going to be a lot of action in the spring portal, but clearly we'll see. But with the spring window coming up, Tennessee officials in Nico's camp wanted to enter active negotiations. And that was being reported yesterday by On3, Pete Nichols, who again will sort of circle back to him later. That's a whole other separate scenario or a separate situation that involves this. But Pete Nichols over at On3, pretty reputable reporter, someone who I respect a lot of the guys over at On3 and 247 and ESPN and whatnot, contrary to popular belief. But so Nichols reports that first, and that starts getting traction. Now, I tweeted at this yesterday after the show was over with, and of course yesterday on the show I said, "Oh, this is a slow news day," and lo and behold, I'm sitting here in my office recording this, and then afterwards I get done recording, check Twitter, and well, actually not Twitter, it was actually the ESPN notification when I opened my phone up, because I noticed it was blowing up during the show. I'm like, was someone texting me or whatever? And it turns out it was this situation being reported. And initially I thought, okay, haha, big deal. This will probably get finalized. Of course, they have their spring game on Saturday tomorrow as I'm recording this. So initially I'm like, okay, they'll get this figured out somehow tomorrow morning. They'll news up, hey, everything's okay, everything's fine. Well, as it turns out, as I just mentioned on the recap from College Football Report, sort of what they compiled, that Nico did not show up to practice today, which not only surprised the media, a lot of folks who are cover college football like me and several others. Now, I'm not necessarily part of the media, but content creators, media types, but also surprised a lot of the coaching staff and players. And it seems like that nothing has really changed in terms of the deal getting made. Of course, like I mentioned, they have their spring game or event. I don't even know if it's actually a real spring game. I think it is, though I'm not totally sure. I know a lot of schools. I think Ohio State And Notre Dame are having traditional spring games, but there's a lot of other teams who are not. But anyway, that's besides the point. Just to have their spring activity, their final spring scrimmage or whatever tomorrow, that'll be open to the public. There's no deal yet. They're still negotiating. And what has also transpired is, I'll get another drink of water here. What has also transpired is that now you have Nico's dad coming after Pete Nico, saying basically, and look, I'm going to go ahead and say the word. I don't care if this video gets shadow banned or whatever. Calls Pete Nico's a bitch. And then you have Shannon Terry at On3, who was the founder of 247. Josh Pate's mentioned him before. Shannon, never met him before. He seems like a pretty professional person to be around. Seems like just a nice guy in general. Whatever. But Shannon Terry comes out, defends Pete Nakos. A lot of the folks over on On3 do the same thing. And look, I don't know Pete Nakos personally. I don't know. I don't work for On3. I'm definitely very much an independent creator. So I don't know what was being said and what he was hearing. But from what Pete Nakos said, and he's since put this out on Twitter, that look, the source I have there at Tennessee, I trust him with my life. And that's paraphrasing here. I'm sort of defending his reporting. And now it's not even just him saying that. It's I believe Pete Thamel has reported it. The folks over at VolQuest have also reported that, well, they're the first ones to break that Nico was not at practice today. So it seems like it's not just him reporting that. It seems like a lot of other folks now just talking about it. So it's not just him talking about it. It's a lot more other people who are either using the exact same source or have other sources that are saying the same thing. So what we have on our hands here is a situation with contract negotiations. There's spring games tomorrow. There's still no resolution yet as I'm recording this, and I'm going to check Twitter here to make sure I'm not missing anything that would contradict anything that I'm saying here. And it doesn't seem like it. Just got some stuff from Andy Staples. Of course, he was on earlier on his show. I watched a little bit of that. Trying to see here. Nothing else besides that. Also, by the way, too, and this is not part of the video, but Kent State, by the way, fired their head coach today. How about that? Apparently there's some gambling issues there. I may touch on this on the show on Tuesday, but yeah, apparently this was something that was percolating behind the scenes there of gambling and stuff, and he's been let go and there's an interim coach there, so that's also out there as well. I guess I may change the title too to talk about both this and that. Excuse the water here, but this was not something I was planning on doing. Just gotta make sure the voice is going well. So what we have here, again, as I've mentioned, Nico, contract negotiations have broken down. He wants more money. The school is hesitant to pay him more money. There's spring, whatever event thing is happening tomorrow. But what is also more important is that the spring transfer window opens next week, I believe on Monday. So business hours Monday, the database opens up. If you have your password, if it's available to you, again, only available, again, for the athletes, coaches, and media people, administrators, not the general public. So you cannot go to the transfer database and find it. You cannot. It's heavily encrypted. It's heavily secured. So once that opens up Monday, if there's no resolution here, Nico's entering the portal. That's my personal opinion, is that this does not get resolved. He's in the leave. And look, whatever happens with that, if he leaves or stays, whatever. The problem with this, and I think the situation highlights a bigger issue, and this is something that Turf 3's talked about and Josh Pace talked about, and I'm sure other folks have talked about. It's the issue of no structure. If you want people and players to have, player movement, NIL, whatever, the revenue sharing, whatever, giving players contracts, whatever, I'm all for that. But there's no structure, and that's the problem. Think back to the whole Jimbo Fisher Nick Saban thing. When Nick Saban, albeit, yes, audio was leaked and that should ever came out. But, of course, if you don't remember, this happened about, 3 years ago now, which is insane. It feels like it just happened yesterday. But when Jimbo was still at Texas A&M, and, of course, they were coming off of the #1 recruiting class, and, him, the whole sliced bread thing and whatnot. So they signed the #1 class. And Nick Saban comes out to one of his conventions back around this time a couple years ago. I think it was in May, actually, right before Memorial Day. And they got leaked, and Nick Saban said, something about, buying players and stuff like that, and A&M bought the best class money can buy, and it was the whole, Cold War with Nick Saban and Jimbo Fisher, and Jimbo comes out that Friday at a very casual press conference that was obviously not scheduled to happen. But everyone back then was more focused on the Jimbo Fisher and Nick Saban feud. Now, of course, yours truly didn't have a show back then, but what I thought, and I agree with Josh Pate, that it's not so much the feud, that those two were verbally fighting, it was a Cold War. It's more of the issue of both of those guys agreed on the same problem: that there's no structure, there's no rules and guardrails to prevent situations like what we're seeing with Tennessee right now and this whole contract negotiation thing. And whether or not you want to blame Tennessee or blame Nico, you can do that. The other folks are doing. I'm just saying the broader issue here is that if you want player movement, if you want revenue sharing, if you want players to get money, which is I'm all for, that's cool, that's fine, I don't care, whatever. Everyone wants money. I know we're going through a recession and everything like that. There has to be structure. There's no structure right now. This is why the house ruling and stuff like that happening. There's no, while that's good, but still there's no structure. And what Josh Payton talking about more than I've seen a lot of people discussing is that, while again I agree with everyone that players should be paid and blah 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 everything like that, there needs to be structures and rules. There's not that right now, and this is why this whole situation is a result of no structure, no regulations. There's no things to help out. Think about this. Think about if you're Josh Heupel right now. You're going into your spring practice. You think everything's fine up until yesterday, and all of a sudden this happens. You also have the spring window opening next week, the portal window, players to transfer. I mean, this sucks, man. This really does suck if you're a head coach right now. This is why people like Nick Saban are retiring. This is why Josh Payton continues to say and has said before that there are several coaches behind the scenes that have told him privately, I'm this close to retiring and I'm like 45 years old. I'm like, that's the definition of insanity, but it's true. And this is an example A of why coaches feel like that. Why there's so much stress and angst and nervousness about where the future of the sport is. And look, it pisses me off, and I am a coach. So again, it doesn't matter what happens if Nico leaves or stays. It doesn't matter. It doesn't fix the problem. The problem's still going to be there. You're still going to have more situations of players having contract issues and them sitting out. And look, I understand people. If people want to get mad about Nico leaving and this whole situation in and itself, while the whole general issue of no guardrails and no rules and regulations around player movement and revenue sharing and them getting paid. I know a lot of folks who are reacting to this, and I've jumped into a couple of Tennessee live streams. For example, Talking Vols, I was on there. Talking Vols, I was on there earlier. I talked a little fast there. Speaking of Jimbo Fisher, I was on their stream with Boogie and all of them earlier. That's one of the Tennessee channels I follow. They're mad. There's no doubt they're mad. There's no doubt if you're a Tennessee fan and you're looking forward to next year and looking to see Nico improve and the offense get a lot better, second full year as a starter, this sucks. It does suck. And it's no fun for you guys as that is no fun for the coaches either. And look, as a Buccaneers fan, as an NFL fan, we're used to this because, as a Buccaneers fan, we see players leave all the time. Like, several Buccaneers players over the years who I thought were pretty good ended up going to different organizations. Some of them, multiple organizations afterwards, which is, if you've watched NFL for a number of years like I have, for a long time like I have, being a Bucs fan for over 10 years, I'm used to it. I've been jaded to the whole don't get attached to players, they'll eventually move on, yada, yada, yada. But in college football, it's a little bit different. It's not the NFL, because you do get attached to these people. You do get attached to the university, because as a Buccaneers fan, well, yes, I have a lot of memories of, watching the games on TV and going to Raymond James Stadium back in January. That's all good and whatnot, but you got never alert. Okay, this is just regurgitating what's been happening from ESPN. Okay, nothing new for the Nico stuff as I'm recording this, but as an NFL fan, you don't get attached to some of those players. But what I was trying to say before I got distracted here, in college football, you do have that attachment, because you do have the attachment to having memories of going to Neyland Stadium. You have memories of watching Tennessee football, winning national championships. You have memories of being an alumni from there. You have attachment. You have actual attachment. Actual attachment to the university, a place that you've been to. You invest with. You invest with your money. You invest emotionally. What's happening right now? If you're a Tennessee fan, I agree. This is bullshit. It really is. It's bullshit. And again, like I mentioned, I'll end the video here of this. Again, this all stems from zero structure from the NCAA, whoever's governing the sport, the commissioner or whatever. There's no structure, and I blame this on the adults in the room. Again, if you want a player environment, if you want players to get paid, which I'm totally for, no structure, this is what happens. This is exactly what's going to happen. Coaches are pissed off, players are mad, agents are, by the way, are thriving too. By the way, this is something that Josh Payton mentioned back on Sunday, that agents are totally thriving over this. Like, there's no doubt in my mind that Nico's agents are salivating at the mouth the fact that they're getting all this attention. They're not just Nico's agents, but any agent getting attention and they're getting work and they're able to negotiate deals because that's their job. But once you get structure in place, the agents are, they have less power, but they hold all the power right now. And guys, without no structure, and unless we don't get total change, or not total change, but total structure and college football with player empowerment, revenue sharing, all this stuff, the house settlement and everything, this is going to happen. This is continuing to happen unless there's someone is able to take control of this and say, this is enough. We're cutting out all the BS. We're putting rules in place that yes, you can have your player empowerment. You can have, players getting paid, revenue sharing, whatever. But there are going to be rules in place. There's going to be contract stipulations, there's going to be this and that and whatever to prevent something like this from happening. To prevent issues like this happening before the portal opens, and let alone, I don't know, man. This sucks. I'm not even a Tennessee fan either. This sucks. This really does suck. And again, whatever happens with Nico, if he leaves, stays, it's not going to fix the problem. If he ends up leaving and entering the portal, that doesn't fix the problem. So I know I sounded really emotional here, but this really got me fired up. As I know most of you are, if you're living in, Knoxville, Tennessee, or Memphis, Tennessee, or Jackson, Tennessee, or whatever. If you're a UT fan, alumni, whatever, I'm sorry. This sucks, but definitely, like I said, until there is actual change, until there is structure, this is going to happen, and this is driving coaches crazy and off the wall. And look, if you think Josh Pate's lying when coaches are saying that, younger coaches are saying, look, I'm this close to retiring and calling it quits until there's structure, this is an example of what he's talking about. Situations just like this. So I'm going to end it here. Apologies if I'm sounding a little bit more fired up today, but I had to make this video. I had to get this out there because I was not waiting until Tuesday to do this. Some more water here. Again, when I check Twitter one more time here just to make sure I'm not missing anything, but I don't think I am. Man, there's nothing new here right now. In terms of this, if something else happens over the weekend, I may do another video on this, but probably not. I'll probably just wait until Tuesday. But yeah, man, this has gone really bad, and in terms of the drama with On 3 and the whole reporter stuff, and that's a whole other issue. We can talk about that at a different time. But like I said, man, if again, I know I've said, well, I'll end it multiple times. I really end it here. I'll end it with this, and I'll end the recording. If you want player empowerment, if you want players to be compared, whatever it's called, revenue sharing, whatever, again, I'm all for that. I'm not disagreeing with you on that. I'm fully for players getting paid and compensated for merchandise or whatever. But again, if you do not have structure, if you do not have any guardrails or rules in place to prevent, certain situations like this will continue to happen. And there's regardless of what happens, if Nico leaves or stays, nothing's changing. So I'll keep you guys posted on Twitter, but I'm going to get this video out. No editing or anything. It's just raw reaction here. So, again, usual stuff. Links in the description and the also in the channel description. Make sure to follow me on Twitter. Spotify, make sure you like the video. Share it out. I'll also end up sharing it probably on Twitter here in a little bit. But yeah, guys, this is getting weird. So hopefully you guys enjoy your weekend, enjoy your Friday. And if anything else happens, I'll be on Twitter reacting to it. If not, worst case scenario, we'll go on and do another video. So